Okay, so once again, orienting, whichever one it is, pointing the hose clamps in the right direction. Hi, I'm Tangles. This is my garage, and this is my car. Alright, so here is the plan. I've got 2 barbs, 3/4 inch barbs, 2 bungs, a lower heater hose that was in the car, and that's what I'm going to use to loop it back on itself. So these 2 barbs will go in the 2 ends that used to go into the heater tap assembly. I'm going to cut this hose here and here, just keep the U shape, and I'm going to bung off the heater core that's in the car because there is still coolant in that heater core. I don't want it corroding, you know, getting extra air and stuff in there, so bung it off and make sure nothing gets in or out of that heater core. This has got the heat shielding on it, which will have to come off, but yeah, it should work. And I'm using this hose instead of the nice silicone one, because the nice silicone one it's a nice silicone hose, so why would I cut that up? If I ever decide to put the heater back together, I'm sure this hose will be easier to come by than the other one. I could probably just reconnect it using the valves that I would have to take out anyway. Alright, let's slam it together. So, just gotta cut this off. These are side cutters, once again not the right tool for the job. Oh, there appears to be a bit of a seam here actually. Yeah, okay. Sort of like cardboard. As in, like a toilet paper roll as far as the construction. Doesn't want to follow it though. I'll just tear this off. I've got no use for this heat shield, so I don't need to save it. Voila! There's the hose. Okay, so you see this is quite flexible and usable. I can, you know, do stuff, so it doesn't have to be perfect. For the cuts, first of all, I'll just cut it here, and then I'll just take a little bit off this end. Another handy use for secateurs. And you can see there's a twist in it, but it'll pull around just fine. Like that, with a barb in it. Pulled into the hose. Not a problem. So that's my new hose to soak back on itself. Barb on either end. 1, 2, and they need to go in the car. Alright, so it's something to take note of, which I find really frustrating. It's really easy to do, and no one seems to do it, is pay attention to the direction of your hose clamps and their angle to make them easier to access. Now, this is going in the car in that configuration, like so, and when I first put the hose clamp on, I just stuck it on like that, and I started doing it. Well, hang on, which way is it going to be in the car? It's going to be that way. I won't be able to get a screwdriver or a ratchet or anything onto that. So, always turn your hose clamps around so you can get at them in the car. It's not that hard a thing to do, to be honest, and it really does make life a lot easier. Getting the hose clamps out of the car was a pain in the ass because none of them were pointing in the right direction. Okay, so once again, orienting, whichever one it is, pointing the hose clamps in the right direction for later. Now, because it'll be harder to do the bottom one with the top one on, I'm going to do the bottom one first, and then put the bottom one on, tuck them both in there, and voila. Once I do these hose clamps up, I'll put the bracket back in there. So I've got something and I'll just zip tie this to it. So let's do this hose clamps up. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick autopsy on this, and I'll show you actually where the failure was, because it didn't fail here until I over tightened that hose clamp trying to stop the leak. And it was not leaking from that nipple at all. It's leaking from there. So this had fractured and was leaking coolant down below, and then it, you know, it looked like it was coming from in there when it was all in situ. And then with pulling the hoses off, you know, jiggling and loading it up, we opened it up more. I opened it up more, which is why the leak was worse when I put it back together. And then when I over tightened the hose clamp, I broke this. Now this will have failed eventually because it has perished a little bit, but it's probably not due to fail just yet. It looks like the inner 50% was still good, the outer 50% had perished. There's a dark line in there on both of them that you can see. So yeah, I probably, if I had paid some attention, I probably could have disassembled this and just repaired that, but I didn't, so my reward is having to redo it. Now that being said, this probably needed replacing anyway because it is starting to perish. So as this, you see the bubbles or the fracture starting to happen in it, in the plastic around here. So this one will break too. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to use this now as a bracket to hold my new double hose assembly. So simple job. I've just put the loop in either end. I've got a bit of that heat shielding and just put it back over the hose, just where it sits behind the head there. It's a bit close and I can't sort of get it to tie back to the firewall. It should be fine without it, but just as a, you know, it's sitting there, so I might as well use it. Yeah, you know, get your hose clamps. It's a friggin' simple job, and that should work. Now I was thinking of a way to add a bleed valve to this, and I did think of a way, but it'd need a better barb, that's all, because that is a high spot. A little bit of air could get trapped in there, but with the car jacked up on an angle, it's, I don't know, 6 inches below the radiator cap. If the car was down flat, it won't be, so as long as I get it right, fill the radiator while it's jacked up, it should be fine. Then after that, I'll worry about any little bubbles or anything that work their way through the system. Shouldn't be a drama. Okay, so over here we have our two bungs. Bung 1, bung 2. So that's what went into the firewall. Over here, our fuel rail is back in, and that's sort of all I've done. Everything's still loose and not tidied up because I'm going to run it and see if it leaks. Hopefully it doesn't. I've already topped up the coolant, and yeah, the moment of truth. See if that even works. Alright, so I ran it earlier and I've let it cool down to, I think it's 43 degrees now, so well below operating temp. So I ran it all the way up to 76, which is operating temp, and then let it cool all the way down. That's to pump the coolant through and for the air to get stuck the highest point with the car jacked up, the radiator. And I just topped it up, and it was probably about 150 mils or so, which is about the volume of those hoses, I would hazard a guess at. So yeah, I'd say she's ready to go. So I'll zip tie all that calamity back there back together. Also no leaks, still no leaks. So I'll zip tie it all back together and take it for a test run and make sure it doesn't leak under driving conditions. Okay, well, we've got good news and bad news. Good news is it's not leaking. Bad news is I just went to take it for a squirt, a little test drive, and it was missing a cylinder. So I started playing around with some stuff. And I think you can see quite clearly why it's missing. Yeah, that's coming out of the injector. So the plug, and this happened before on number 6, and I had a mate fix it for me. So it's not going anywhere for the time being until that's fixed. So yeah, I have to re-terminate that plug.